What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange, joined again by Edwin Porras, our medical expertise here. We're going to be talking about some injuries today. We're going to be talking about the guys that busted their hammies in training camps, the guys that busted their shoulders in training camps, all the guys that we're concerned about for injury reasons, whether we should buy, sell, hold, drop them, whatever we're going to be doing. So how you guys doing today?
Doing well. Again, just excited to talk about these players. Let's get the main event here in Dr. Edwin Porras, basically going through these injuries to key prominent fantasy football figures that you guys are going to be looking at to put in your lineup week one or potentially holding. We'll see what Dr. Porras says here.
Let's see it. Let's go. Let's get it, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Anytime.
Awesome. So as Edwin alluded to, we did have him on once before. So if you're curious about guys that we're not talking about here that have been previously injured, like Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Stafford, Odell Beckham, we talked about them back in, I don't know, was it June or whatever? So if you want to go back and find that video, wide receivers to avoid and all that stuff. So let's start with the hammy monster because it got a lot of people. Miles Sanders, Devontae Parker, Mike Evans, as reported today, Golden Tate, Darrell Henderson, and Tyreek Hill. All these guys suffered what we would assume, I guess, are all kind of low-grade hamstring injuries. It doesn't sound like any of them are like super serious, but if you want to just give your thoughts on like kind of the hamstring factor.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the guys that I think matter. And I think the guys that matter when it comes to the hamstring issues is Mike Evans. He is a dude who you look at and you think to yourself, okay, he's coming off of a season from a hamstring injury. He has a history of hamstring injuries before that. In 2016, he had a pretty significant groin injuries. So those are all muscular contractile tissue issues. And you also get the fact that he's 26 or 27, I don't remember. And you know that at that age is the average age that hamstring injuries tend to happen. So you put all that in a pot, a history of a significant one, and then him being 26 or 27 years old, you just don't love it. You don't love the fact that he's coming off this injury. He was I think he was a partial participant. The practice report haven't came out yet.
He didn't participate today.
He didn't participate today, which is, it's still early for Sunday games. Still Wednesday. If you get to Thursday and Friday and he doesn't practice, you're really starting to raise those red flags. But at this point, he's sort of a watch. But this was, I mentioned this in my at fantasypoints.com. I mentioned this in my wide receiver volatility article back from June I think it was May or June, that Mike Evans doesn't come without volatility with him. So this is obviously not necessarily predictable, but it was something that was on the table for him.
Yeah. And do you have any thoughts? Tyreek Hill, by the sounds of it, is actually fine by now because this did happen for Tyreek Hill a while ago. And I know for a receiver of Tyreek Hill's, like the way he plays, like hamstrings would be normally concerning for him. But what about Miles Sanders? Because I know a lot of people are concerned if they picked him at the back end of the first round or the early second round.
Miles Sanders is fine. Tyreek Hill is fine. Maybe look at later in the season for Tyreek Hill specifically. You might look to him as somebody who could have, another recurrence. But Miles Sanders was never not fine. And especially now, so much time has passed since it happened in the first place. Unless it was a grade 3 off the bone tear, he's fine by now.
Yep. Okay. And by the sounds of it, by Coach McVay's talk, it sounds like Darrell Henderson's going to be back pretty soon, which is bad news if you own Cam Akers because they're probably going to go for like a committee approach at the beginning of the season. One guy I do definitely want to get in here is a slight labrum tear for Jalen Reagor, a rookie receiver that I'm super high on. He's expected to miss 4 weeks by the timelines that I was able to find from the date of the injury that he had sustained in late August. And he was not put on the injury reserve list, which would mean he would miss the first 3 weeks of the season. I believe Danielle Hunter just got put on it today. So what are your thoughts on Reagor? Are we going to see him make an impact in his rookie year, at least early on?
So the thing about Reagor and his injury is that it doesn't matter whether it's a small tear, a medium tear, a large tear, because that's also subjective. Plus, everything, there's so much that gets lost in the shuffle between communication from medical personnel to a reporter, just basically a person who doesn't really necessarily speak the language. So I want to make it clear there that we don't know what size the labrum tear actually is. We also don't. It also sort of doesn't matter. Once you dislocate a shoulder, you can look at it like a golf ball on a golf tee. When the golf tee gets chipped and you have the golf ball sitting there, it's easier for it to slide off, right? You can still use it, but it'll potentially slide off. Sort of like if you set a golf ball on a the bottom side of a water glass, the same thing, same concept. If you chip that, it's easier for it to roll off. And the same thing goes for the joint. Now that he's dislocated it, subluxed it, and part of the labrum, the shelf that protects it and keeps it in the joint, has been damaged. There's the potential, actually about 55% chance that he redislocates it again, and that's when you really start to run into problems, when you might become a chronic dislocator, like you see with Dalvin Cook. So it's an issue to watch. It's an issue to watch not only for his rookie year, but it's an issue to watch moving forward. I'd be interested to see what's going to happen with Jalen Reagor if he continues to have issues early on in the season. If it dislocates again, I would not be shocked if they just went ahead and put him on the IR and gave him surgery.
All right, interesting. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows at this point the hype going into Jalen Reagor. So if that's the case, if it's ends up being a chronic issue for him, that's definitely something to monitor down the stretch. And anyways, we're going to segue into the next shoulder injury. Again, a bunch of these shoulder guys, and Mike Williams.
We can skip over him. He's not very fantasy relevant. Let's go to the guys that matter here. Deebo Samuel is the one I really want to know about, because this one is kind of like the timeline's kind of crossing over perfectly with like the start of the season. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Deebo Samuel? He was just activated, of course, off the NFI list, September 5th. They apparently expect him back.
Called a shot a while ago too. I remember that.
Yeah. So the thing about Deebo Samuel is it was always going to be the 10-week mark, right? If his rehab went smoothly through 10 weeks, which was August 27th, then there was a pretty good chance that he was going to come back week 1. But you have to look at it in a few different buckets. The first bucket is, what is his short-term prognosis? In the short term, like the first week or even 2 weeks of the season, he hasn't been fully practicing with the team. So even if he's active, you can't really trust him necessarily, just because from a football perspective, he hasn't been integrated himself into that offense quite yet this year. From a sort of midterm, like let's say the first half of the season, his risk of re-injury, according to the literature, is about 10%. So there's still a risk of refracture, even if the bone is healed, even if the CT shows that it's clean, even if the patient doesn't have symptoms, those refractures still happen. You also have to look at it in the long term. In the long term, the further out he gets from surgery without a fracture, the better off he's going to be. So you put all that together in a pot, and you sort of look at Deebo Samuel as a value if you got him in drafts beyond the 11th, 12th round. Who's falling far?
He's even definitely the 9th round at the time. Like, I was swooping up based off what you told me a month ago. I couldn't believe it. I mean, even in the Scott Fish Bowl, I got him in like the 11th round, and I'm like, okay, well, how's he going to be? Okay, Dr. Edmond told me he's okay. Let me go with him, and that ends up being that it's going to be a great value looking back on it.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully there are a few people the 7 people that listen to me out there were able to capitalize on that.
I've still been a little hesitant on Deebo Samuel. I just, like, as a policy of mine, I just don't like buying into people with injuries going into the season. But like, obviously, the talk we had with you in June or whatever definitely did shed some light on it. He would have been like completely off my board had we not talked to you, and he kind of just became like, okay, double-digit rounds, I'll look for him. So another guy that was definitely not drafted in the double-digit rounds, and a lot of people, including myself and Danny, really liked this guy's outlook going into the season. That's DeAndre Swift, and then Adrian Peterson ruined him. My assumption is they signed Adrian Peterson because of DeAndre Swift's injury. So I couldn't actually find the name of the injury that he has. It just, everything I saw says leg injury.
His leg, yeah.
Yeah, but he's been practicing in a limited capacity, and I believe he returned to full practice today from the report I saw on Fantasy Pros and a couple Lions sites. So what are your thoughts on Swift? Is he going to be okay by week 1, or is the Adrian Peterson kind of ruin that anyway?
Yeah, this is an annoying injury, because it's an annoying kind of injury, because it's Matt Patricia trying to be a knockoff Bill Belichick, and he just doesn't talk about injuries at all, right? So they didn't have to report anything before the season starts. They don't have to report injuries. So they just have like lower leg or whatever leg injury. Yeah. This is kind of weird, because DeAndre Swift doesn't necessarily have a history of like soft tissue things from what I remember seeing. And so the fact that he suffered it probably, if I had to put like a guess on it, because it really would be a guess, it would be some sort of soft tissue, either calf, hamstring, quad type thing, simply because those are common in rookies. Those are common at the beginning of the season. And it doesn't seem like it's very, it doesn't seem like it's very serious. So with all that, I would say for week 1, I would probably shy away from Swift because of all the things that you just mentioned. I think that from a season-long perspective, he can still shine, and I don't think that this injury will hold him back by the mid to late weeks of fantasy seasons.
All right, perfect. Man, like, this is my guy, so I'm just glad to see that although there's not much light, like, he's still got a positive outlook, like overall like later in the year. But going into the next guy, it's going to be a guy that was doing individual drills on the side for his groin, as reported today. That's going to be David
Another
Montgomery from
thing,
the Chicago
just before
Bears.
we get into him real quick,
Okay.
did anyone see the quote from Tarik Cohen where he said like the media has blown David Montgomery's injury out of proportion or something? Like I actually saw Tarik Cohen said like, oh, it's been like a bigger deal in the media than it's been to us for whatever reason. I don't know what that means exactly,
Really?
but that's what he said.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I'm Googling that right now.
I just laughed at the doing individual drills with his groin. I'm like, what the heck? Like
that does sound funny, I guess. I see what you're getting at now.
Yeah,
it does seem a little weird to be
Was it
doing
Ian
individual
Hartz who
drills with the
retweeted
groin.
that, the thing where the guy was like, oh, it sounds like me when I'm home alone or something.
Somebody said that. I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
That's epic.
So the thing about David Montgomery, right? So this happened. I don't even remember. It was for 3 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
The bare minimum on those are 4 weeks. The fact that he's doing individual drills on the side, that's a long way from playing football, man.
Mm-hmm.
I would be shocked if he played in week 1. I know there have been some reports that he will play in week 1, but
It says game time decision still.
Oh, still game time decision.
Yeah.
I
Even
mean,
if he
that's.
is, then,
I feel like he's a long way from that, and even if he does play, I don't know how effective he's going to be, and even if he is effective, I don't know how much volume they'll even decide to give him. So it's going to be a touch and go situation. He's a guy that, for like example, in DF, he's the type of guy at DFS cash games wouldn't take him.
Okay.
Fantasy, if you like did the 0 RB or like anchor RB, late RB, and he's like your RB1. I guess you have no choice, but like I would not love to be in your position, because even moving forward, he's going to be a risk because he didn't have surgery for this 4 to 8 week injury.
And it's not like he has some tremendous upside that we've never seen before. Like he was, I called him fantasy oatmeal before this happened. Like he's kind of just that guy that was like the volume play in the mid round.
Yeah.
All right, so a bit of rapid fire ones. These guys, they all kind of sounded.
Actually. I got one more.
Okay, ask about.
I really want to ask about Brandon Cooks, a guy that the viewers are going to be seeing later today, because you guys are going to be seeing this in the morning, but this released on Thursday morning. What are your thoughts on the Brandon Cooks situation? I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but
weird, man, because he practiced and then didn't practice, which you hate to see, because that means that he practiced and things got worse. If he's going to be, it's kind of the same thing, like similar thing as David Montgomery. If he does play, I wonder how effective he'll be. He can still be good. He can still ball out. He just takes one, right? It just takes like one deep ball for a guy like Brandon Cooks. At the same time, his volatility is going to be through the roof, because anytime you see a guy go from partial practice to no practice, that's never a good sign. So that's something I'm really worried about. And then just in general, I mean, maybe for the week he's fine, but moving forward, I mean, he's had 5 concussions. That's something that you have to really, really consider. So he's not somebody that I'm targeting for week 1, and he's not somebody that I'm targeting later in the season either.
My guess is that he's going to be out week 1. They got a longer week playing on Thursday night this week. I'd imagine you hold him out this game, and then he's got 11 days or whatever to come back for week 2. But
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, couple rapid fire guys. These guys all sound like they're okay. Just if they're not, just speak up. Travis Kelce hyperextended his knee, was limited Tuesday, but he was full on Wednesday. No concern there.
Nah, those are pretty vague injuries, and typically guys will sit if there's a game. So I think he did the same thing last year. I'm not worried about it.
Okay. Kenyon Drake was spotted in a walking boot a couple weeks ago. Apparently practiced today. Could have practiced a week ago, but apparently he had an illness or something, or else he would have been practicing since last week.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I think that the specifically for the boot thing, one of our guys over at fantasypoints.com literally talked to somebody in the NFL and was like, yeah, the boot was like a show. Like it was basically just them being cautious and just giving a veteran time off. So I'm not too concerned with Drake.
Okay. And then last one from us, we got Melvin Gordon apparently had some rib injury or something like that. He was reportedly seen practicing about 5 days ago on the 4th.
Yeah. The thing about those rib injuries is, I mean, they're really on a spectrum. If the cartilage damage isn't significant, then it's a pain tolerance issue. And if he hasn't been practicing full contact, then you really worry, like, can he take contact in a game? Another guy that even in the spot, I think who the Broncos play I just
Titans,
looked at it.
Titans?
Who's that?
Yeah.
Titans.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know if you would want to take a flyer there in the first place.
I want to see what that backfield's like, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything they've been saying is like, it could be Philip Lindsay doing Philip Lindsay things and beating out
Right.
veterans that have more investment from the front office.
Yeah, like
Right.
it's just crazy to me because like I was all in on like Melvin Gordon at the beginning of the
too.
offseason. I mean, plain and simple. I know I say that a lot, but he signed an $8 million year contract. He was clearly the superior receiving back and goal line back. And then all we're hearing from camp is, oh, Philip Lindsay's really like making a case for making this at least a 50-50. So it's definitely concerning,
We
especially
bet on the wrong guy early in the
Yeah.
offseason. That's not who you want to bet against, is Philip Lindsay. So
Yeah.
whether Edwin, before we get out of here, were there any other ones that are screaming to you that we didn't talk about that maybe you like know something that other people don't know about that injury, and like the general public should be concerned when they're not, kind of thing?
I think that in generally speaking, we generally shouldn't overreact to like hamstring injuries early on in the season. Alvin Kamara, the injection was still a steroid injection. I think people get confused. An epidural is not a type of chemical injection. An epidural is just the technique. It's by the spinal cord, next to the spinal cord. That's what epidural means. He still had that. It was likely still a steroid injection. Apparently, it's still cleared up for him. So he should be good for now. That injection could wear off in 2 months, and he's not allowed to have an injection except, generally speaking, for the general public for, 3 months. So if we get to week 7 or 8 and we're looking at Alvin Kamara he's missing a step like we did last year, then you really start to be, but he's not nothing on the injury report, or you see it back on the injury report, then you really start to be, you should start to be concerned and try to sell, in my opinion, your stocks of Alvin Kamara as soon as possible. That's the one piece of advice that I give.
Cool. And one thing I just wanted to clear up, I don't think they actually did say that Mike Evans was a hamstring injury. I don't think it was 100% confirmed that that's what it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was soft. The word soft tissue was used. But as you mentioned, he's had, like in the Colts game last year, he was out. He had one play touchdown and he was out with a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
It's just the type of receiver. He's a long, lanky receiver that runs downfield all the time. Any soft tissue injury, I would imagine, is not good for a player of Mike Evans. Is like the way he's used, and same goes for a guy like Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, thanks a lot, Edwin. We're glad to have you on here before the season got kicked off. A couple of the people in the Discord wanted to know some of these players that they drafted, if they're going to be okay. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the button that looks like this. Comment any of your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell icon to get notified anytime we post a video, and go check out Edwin's work at fantasypoints.com. Guys, it's week 1. We got football on tonight, so we don't have to talk about ADP or values or busts or anything like that. We just
tired
get to
of that,
watch
man.
the toe hit the leather.
Yeah.
Ready for it, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Anytime. Take it easy.